So, yeah, tell me, so you were talking about life coming or how we're evolving.
Right. And also, I always like to understand the origin, like the origin of creation of souls, and then how the souls individualize, and the aspects that we are in any particular expression, in any particular space and time, and how we as souls interact with each other. And so as we're talking about the twin flames, it seems like as an individual soul, then this is from origin, that we go throughout our expressions for eons as twin souls, supporting each other. Is that an accurate perception?
It probably is. I'm trying to follow it because, we all have different perceptions of things. So I'm not sure that there is any one right way to perceive it, except that the only thing I do sense, or that's coming to me, is that when we're talking about the relationship or origin of a twin flame, and I'm going to at this point just because I know I sent the material to you and that we've been looking it over, and I went in this morning because I had some guidance in sleep state, and this morning as I woke up and reread it, where when I was putting it together, I thought that there was a slight variance in twin flame and mirror soul. But as I continued to read on and read with it, I was being prompted to understand that that they are the same thing. That whoever was using the language of twin flame versus mirror soul, they really are speaking about the same thing. The variation would be with soulmate. Okay, soulmates. Yes. There's a lot of those. But I think it's just a different word or different term that people use as mirror soul instead, because twin flame is kind of done to death, and I think people have a, like we were talking about, a pretty I keep trying to find the word I'm looking for, sensationalist way of looking at twin flame, okay? Mirror soul tends to draw people in a little bit deeper because they have to look at it different. Twin flame carries a different sort of understanding. But what I was getting to is that I think we're talking, the soulmates are contained within the all of the one soul, right?
Right.
And the so they would be contained within the particles or fragments of the separated soul. So twin flame would be, I believe, when the journey has come to such an integration, where you've healed and each piece has done their journeys, had their experiences, healed, worked on, found their other part of themselves, many, many times, maybe not every time, but many times. And you still can't get away from it, because whether you're embodiment with it or you're not embodiment with it, you're still connected to it always, because it's you. It's you in your whole state, right? So they're one consciousness. It's like having a identical twin, that never separated from you. It's your conjoined twins, right? Where you share a brain and you share a heart and you share a mind and you share, all of those things. That's what a twin flame is. You can't get away from it because you can't get away from yourself. So there's this always learning and growth and sparring and dancing and relationship with it. And the only time it can do its ultimate merge into oneness is after both of them have integrated, healed up all the particles, fragments, aspects of themselves that are in need of that that integration, have come to a state of impersonal and unconditional love within themselves and for each other, right? Because the for each other is where they turn into one another, because they realize that, there's this spirit that's dancing between the two of them. It's like it is like Jesus talked about, or any of the other masters, about loving them as you love yourself. It's you're not self-identifying anymore. When you look at them, you see yourself, and that's when I think the completion happens. But that's just my own feeling about it. I know that that's also an experience that Tony and I had. My husband and I, that many years ago. That was the state we were in, and as I followed all of the stages of what happens in a twin solar of relationship, it unfolded exactly that way. It's the tending to, from the ground up, from the moment of your awakening, each of your awakenings, that you're tending to the healing, you're tending to your chakra, you're tending to your auric light, you're tending to your field, you're tending to your consciousness, you're tending to your outer bodies, right? And your inner self, and your inner realms, and all of that is happening simultaneously. And as you're working in all of this and healing it all up, you begin to integrate that light, the allness of you. And when you step into that resonant field of light, then, and they're in their resonant field of light, and you are understanding without really speaking. You have this symbiotic, unspeakable, I guess I want to change that around, this unspeakable symbiotic relationship where you just know what the other needs, what they're thinking, how they're moving, what they're doing, and where you're going and who you are to each other, what your relationship is, without ever thinking about it, without ever, you're going to the same place. There's an acknowledgement that happens with twin flames where they just know. From the moment they meet, they just know. And it's not like a normal infatuation, It's not like a normal honeymoon. There's such a familiarization of it, such a comfort zone already, even if you are still pushing and tugging and pulling because you haven't started your healing journey yet. And there is a lot of that, even distancing and breaking up and time spent away and rethinking, like we've talked about or read about in our writings, rethinking another host, what they call the understudy. I've had a lot of experience with people who have talked about this before me. They never used twin flames. They never said they were looking for their the person that was going to complete with them. And I think as a human being, most people, they think that means that somehow in you aren't whole or you're not complete, but that's not what twin flames are talking about. They're not talking about the unwholeness. They're talking about the final movement. I just got chills all through my body. The movement into the state where it opens up, where you've had your completion, you came into oneness, and you're no longer separate. You don't have a different consciousness. You don't have a different way of expressing. You may sense that there's lots of voices in there, or lots of thinkings in there, or lots of, but there's no there really is only, at least in the way I encountered it, at the state we were in or the place that we came to, there was only the two. There was no other mind.
It seems like it would be fully integrated, and as I was picturing, like the DNA would be actually connected and interwoven.
Yeah, and I can't, when I relate back to it, and I know that you and I have talked about doing a recording on this, so hopefully we'll have that at some point. Maybe we'll hold this one until that comes out. There's several of them I think we need to hold, so maybe that we need to do that next. But I didn't realize at the time what they had been doing. I mean, what the electrical impulses were that went through our bodies when we got to that place, when it was actually happening, when the Kundalini, I think, experience was taking place. And it should have taken place a long time before that, I mean, according to things I've read or things that have been written. But that wasn't the case with us. I don't ever remember having that experience until the moment of the gate opening and he and I having access to all of those realms at the same time simultaneously. Because I think that there might have been something different going on with us. They may have been, our high selves may have written a different journey, and that was for us to pre-experience this in order to bring it forth, to be able to talk about the process. And even though we were unaware that we were walking a process when it happened, because we weren't, we just came into that together in that particular time in our life and our journey here. So it unfolded that way, but there were lots of electrical impulses that went through us before it opened up and we had access to it at that night. We had gyrations in our bodies. We were like seizure-like epileptic movements and gyrations, and there was an explosion of light, like a million suns in our third eye, and that was when everything changed. It was when we were fused, and we knew it. We could feel it, not in this life, not in third-dimensional reality. We were very much two different people sitting on a bed talking to each other about what was happening, there in all of the other realms where we were one, and it was a million times more real than this reality could ever be. This was not alive, that was. And so it's very complicated, very difficult to explain, that was true life. And that we had so much interaction and were able to do so many things which came up for us behind the veil, so to speak. We were able to look into other creations. We were able to be there and interact with them. It's a very, very amazing opportunity for us to perceive what that was like, what that felt like, what happens when, those who live on the other side of the veil come here, what their functions are, what their applications are, how they see, how they interact with humanity and the world and the earth, because we were doing that. We were that. So it was fascinating. But the oneness is what spoke to me. I mean, I just kind of took it for granted because it was natural for me when it was happening. But now that you try to speak on these subjects, and I've encountered or stumbled into this, what this whole twin flame thing is about, I'm going, oh my goodness, that's what we are. I didn't know. I just always felt as a unity being that we could always be that way with everyone. Do you know what I mean? It's like the unity thing is it's like we are that with each other. were not separate from each other. So for me, that was not a weird experience at all. I just wasn't able to translate it into these kind of terms so that, it would have application here in this dimension, in this realm.
Well, that's really interesting. Well, it answers some of my questions, because as a oneness being, it's like, how is this twin flame or mirror expression different from the oneness? And it seems like as the intimate mirror, that it is you, and the integration of all the fragments has really been complete to be that one.
Yeah, and it was at that time. I can't tell you that I held it. When we came back, it was very difficult to come back. I think this is important to say because it's honest, right? And it's about being in a human life, on a human journey. What happened to us happened from the moment I awakened, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. I just was taken, on this, how do I want to say it, like an intuitive, natural unfolding. And I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even know why. I had no conscious thoughts about doing a process. That was not what I was doing. I was giving myself over to the process, because when I woke, my soul, my spirit, everything that I was just took me, and I was overtaken, overshadowed, if you will, and just lit up. I was in joy, and I was on a ride. So it just happened very naturally, and I thought it was just the way I was, of life. We were just going through life. But it turned out to be that it had a destination that I didn't know about, and it culminated in that night, and for many months after. There was still a lot of residual miracles, a lot of residual, and that's what I think happens when you have those kind of light experiences, or you're taken into those kind of realms. I'm just translating this as a person, okay, right now, so that it can be, you can do with it what you want. Look at it, any way that you want, accept it or not accept it. But this is what my view of it is now, is that I've been given enough time to step away from it now. There's been decades since that experience, to be able to kind of look at it and say, why, was it so intense, and why did it happen, within a 4-year span that I got from, knowing nothing and never having any conscious experience to having that experience with my husband simultaneously. Who else could he be, except that? and that how that unfolded. Because once it does, you have stepped into different fields of light. Okay, it's almost like having going into a nuclear reactor of some kind. Okay, there's residual from it when you go out of it, right? There's radioactive type stuff that goes on with you. I believe that energy attracts, right? Like attracts like. So there was a long time after that our life was still very magnetic, if you will, where we were still drawing a lot of miraculous experiences, a lot of things we couldn't explain, things that happened that we didn't know it, we didn't ever feel a need to explain, but they were happening. And it was very powerful. But it was also extremely depressive, because maybe not so much for him, although I think he was shaken a bit for a while. He didn't seem to stay with it as long as I did. But, we didn't stay. We came back. And when you do that, it takes a long time before you can readjust to being here again. And even people who have near-death experiences talk about this. I've heard them discuss it many times. And what happened for me, fortunately, is that that sounds terrible, but I had a really tragic physical illness, that I fell into, and it didn't affect me on the outer side. I was still working full time. I was still doing sessions. I was still doing all the things I do, but it was like an emergency situation. And when I got my surgery and came out of it, it was like they'd done something while I was under. There was an adjustment and I felt renewed again. I felt like I could live a human life again and just be fresh with it all and start again. And I didn't have that same heaviness, that same, so I don't know if there was like a partial soul shift or exchange or an aspect change, or there could have been, anything could have happened. But I was so grateful because I didn't really know, and this is like almost 10 years later, I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with that for much more of my life, because there was always this really huge part that felt so empty, But what I think I wanted to talk about more was the energy, what it does to you energetically when you have these highlight experiences. You are walking and living and expressing in a different field of light. And those that can't reach it, resonate with it, understand it, or feel comfortable near it or with it, they don't, And those that can do, even if they're like in the bottom levels of that vibratory light, they can, if they want it, they can try, they strive to be in it and to be around and to be a part of what they're sensing, what they're feeling. So I know we've talked about that before. We've talked about angelics, or when we've talked about channeling meditation. When you hold those kind of states of light, it's always an invitation because everything is energy truly, right? And consciousness. So you're inviting it. You're always, because you are it and you're holding it in yourself and in your realm of your energy space, it's always an invitation. It has to. It can't do anything but ask things to come in or to rise up to it. But for me and for Tony, I think we're blessed because we decided to stay with an opportunity. Somehow our field, we were allowed to fall enough to be able to stay here and kind of work with it again and bring ourselves, back into a new life. And but if you can't see any of this until you get far enough past that kind of an experience to be able to really look at it and dissect it and have other things to compare it to or have relationship to, for you to be able to understand it yourself, so that you can share it with other people. I think it's just been really hard to do that up until this time because I didn't have anything to bounce it off of, to give me any understanding of what had really happened, because I just kind of accepted what happened and was with it while it was happening. But what do I do with it? And I don't know if I said it to you, Betty, but I know that recently I've understood that this wasn't for just him. This wasn't, we did it, we achieved it, this happened for us. But I think through guidance and direction, it's like maybe we were intended to do this thing, beforehand, so that we could really help people understand that we didn't try to do it. You can do this too. This can happen for you just as easily as it happened to us. And I think that it really does when your soul is ready. It's like you cannot do anything before your time. If you haven't accomplished it, if your soul hasn't taken you through these experiences that have been solid and complete and you've lived through them, then, it's that old thing, you can't be anywhere you're not. It can't be an experience if you haven't had it. You can't have lived it and accomplished it if you really haven't lived it and accomplished it. So once that happens, it's like we don't have to think about it or worry about it or stress over it, because he and I certainly didn't. It's like we didn't even know it was happening. And he certainly was not into any of this, ever. He was on his human life journey, right? But the love that I had the opportunity to how do I say this? Become, understand, integrate, work with, journey with, seemed to be what unlocked it, what opened the door for him too, because I think he always held it, he always had it, but he wasn't on the same journey or the path to it that I was. When we both came together, that's when this just took a life of its own. We had no idea what we were walking into. It was the farthest thing from this universe for us that this happened. And I think people need to understand that your soul is always in charge. Your soul knows everything. It's timing, when it's going to happen for you, when it's not going to happen for you, how it's going to happen for you. It is you. You've written this. This is what you're doing. And it doesn't mean what happened to us or our journey is what you're supposed to be doing in this life. It may not be at all. But it is possible, and it did happen. And I believe that this is exactly what they all write about in Ascension. And that's exactly what took place. So, but I didn't have any clue. At the time, I'm always clueless. But the love, is certainly, something that he and I will never forget, that we understand deeply. You never will, because it does go into your, DNA, all your being, if you will. It's like that cellular memory thing. You'll never forget what that was. And it's not romantic love. It's not agape love. It's very different. And it's an acceptance. It's just a knowing that you are one with everything, and everything is you, and that is the love. And there are no walls, no barriers, no how do I say this? No expectations. It is just such a beautiful, easy, peaceful, joyous movement. Sometimes a little terrifying, because if you don't know what's happening, maybe that's why we have this blessing, is that we can maybe help make it a little less scary for people, because I do know that we're in a very unusual time. I think people are being pressed to do these completions, and I think there are many, many, many influxes of what you want to call waves of souls that are entering the earth plane now, that are here to do that, actually do that, because it's what's going to translate the whole planet, all of us, all of humanity.
Well, it seems like you had the experience that is such a different level that I don't think that it's very supportive to compare, to strive for, because you weren't striving for it. You didn't know that was going to happen. But it's an opportunity for absolutely everybody to understand that all of our, what I call normal experiences, continue to be the foundation for potentializing that for each one of us, however it shows up, because we are in a space that we can choose love or we can choose fear, we can choose chaos or we can choose love. So it's just a matter of where we want to focus our attention to go through life. And for you to have the experiences of coming back, then you are, when you were there and when you're here, you are holding the space for the planet to continue to rise up. And I have kind of noticed in some people's experiences that they are having a dream or just an experience that's helping me to see, from my perspective, that they are going to a new plateau. That whatever their experiences are, it's like, oh, this is where their experience and expression used to be, but now something has shifted, and they are in a different place. And they aren't in the same place where you were, you and Tony, but they are, we continue to support each other in learning, growing, and expanding our own expression so that we can potentialize more.
Yeah.
And then as we are doing that, then the opportunity to potentialize is even a new opportunity. It's risen. It's in a new place.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think those are all of those stepping stones. Like I said, everybody has enormous amounts of lifetimes, okay, or opportunities for journeys and experiences. And I know that we all want to always visualize them or envision them as past, present, and future, but they really are all now because you have one consciousness. And that's really hard to understand or to wrap your brain around. It may not be hard to understand or to think about, but to fully get the full measure or meaning of that, all of the soulmates, all the aspects of you, of us, is still us. It's still our soul, and we're still experiencing it with it, right? And you're having the achievements or the victories or the non-victories or the mundane lives or the great lives or the whatever, where they leave marks and you take with them all of that information, all those experiences, and work through those that enlightenment, all right, that clarity, the healings, the understandings. And I don't claim that this is the ultimate or the end, what happened with him and I. It could have been. I mean, we were asked to move through, the gate, and I knew that meant never coming back here again, ever. This was not just like going, no. This was like, you're done. You can come now if you want, but we didn't, so what does that say? So anyway, here we are still. And, but it's kind of like, this is a really interesting thought I'm getting right now because I've never thought this before. I love it when this happens. It's kind of like when I've talked about or done workshops on consciousness, and I would get information that would explain the difference between us when we're like little children or unaware, right? We're not awakened yet. We're loving and we're doing good things and we're living this innate good life, like innocence, right? And naivete. And then you have an awakening, and you become a more awake soul, a conscious soul, okay? Once you become conscious, then there's still the awakening, where you're wide awake and you understand all things. But becoming conscious that you are, conscious that you're thinking, conscious that you're choosing, conscious that you're having thoughts, is the moment when you shift from doing things innately, all right, lovingly, yes, wonderful, it is pure, it's all of those good things. But to choose now, as a conscious being, to do all of those good things, to be that person, to understand that's what you're doing, to have conscious thought around it and behind it, is the part where your eyes are opening. It's a different level. It's a different place to be. The same as what I think we were experiencing. It's one thing, to be on the path of understanding now, because I am finally, even though I've already had the experience of it. It's like cart before the horse, where I finally can say, oh, that's what we were doing. That's what was happening. We just did it. It just unfolded. It just happened in a very natural way. But I didn't do it with any conscious direction or thought. Now, I don't know if that will make a difference or not, but it could. There could be a whole other state of this thing where you actually, like Buddha, like so many other holy beings, direct your ascension, right? Direct it now from choice, from thinking, from will, from practice, from discipline. I was doing all those things through passion before, right? Because I just was so excited to be on the journey. And I wanted to be on it every second, every minute. And drinking up everything I could get my hands on and experiencing and being experiential with everything, everywhere. And it just unfolded. But I still think it was done through direction, right? It wasn't just like, because I don't really believe in accidents at all. I do know that we were being directed all the time because it was always miraculous. And when I look back, I can tell. But when you're in it, you can't tell. But I still wasn't aware. Do you see what I'm saying? I was aware of the learning. I was aware that I was sitting meditating. I was aware of some of the tools and modalities and things that were being presented that I wanted to know more about. But I wasn't aware of what was unfolding. So I think that there's a big difference there's something about being able to choose love, like you were talking about just a little bit ago, to be able to choose your path and your direction in life. Whether it's, and you have to listen to your own inner spirit. It could just be that they just want you to sit on a mountaintop and just bliss yourself away. That's fine with me. I don't have any issues with anything that anybody's getting, because I do think that's your way, right? It's your path. And all of them are included in, even what happened with he and I could just be another one of those blips on the radar on the journey. Because we didn't go into it. Maybe they already knew we weren't going to go into it, right? But
well, you had a choice, and you had a conscious choice.
Yeah, we did. That's true. We did.
Well, I'm glad you came back.
We didn't understand the fullness of it behind it. We didn't understand really where they were asking us to go. We knew they were inviting us and telling us we could come. But I don't think it was till a lot later that we understood what that was that they were inviting us to. And it could have been just that moment of intrepidation. And to have an intrepidation when you're in already a state where you're not human, you're just mind, and love, and you still you balked at it, is interesting. So I've had a lot to think about in that too. Yeah. I don't think I was done. I was ready. So many messiahs, so many masters, so many ascended ones are not done, with working here. I'm not sure I was ready to let go.
I read about or heard about the possibility that sometimes a being has more reach when they are on the other side.
You could. You definitely have. Well, I'll tell you this. This is the thing that's, let me ask if I should say this. Yes, I've heard the same thing, that yeah, you could be helpful and have a lot of helpful influence on the other side because you're not restricted to a lot of the confines of consciousness, of belief, of structure here, of the matrix here. And I'm struggling with something because I keep thinking I'm supposed to say it, but yeah. I think ultimately that, again, it's a soul-guided thing.
And to me, the next step would be being in both places at the same time, doing the soul work from the other side as well as in the 3D physical body.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
We were doing that. I mean, we all are. We're just not aware that we are. See, that's the thing. And that's what we had the opportunity to see. And it wasn't just from one level beyond here. You can, and it is possible. And what I'm sensing is probably going to start happening because I think that people are going to start doing these completions, but in physical form, like he and I did. And I think that was the important point about the experience that we had, because when they talk about Jesus doing his ascension, they couldn't at that point touch him because he hadn't yet ascended, right? And I think that something, since we've started working with the DNA, it's been opening and opening and opening, and we've come, it's 2,000 years now, supposedly, in time, right? So there's been this incredible evolution and movement since that time. We've definitely progressed. And I think the abilities that we're carrying may afford us, especially with the rising of the planet, the rising of people in their own vibrations, the thinning of all of the veils dropping, and our ability to be able to now move between them much more freely. I don't see why we can't do these completions very well in physical form now and still have access to all of those realms simultaneously, because that's what we are. We're all that. It's just that some people do it before others do it in some lifetimes, right? And in other lifetimes they don't. Others do it, So that what happened with us, and this is my point, I've never wanted it to be special. I didn't ever want anyone to think that we think in any way that it's something that is above or anybody or something, that we did no one else can do. The point of us being here and talking about it is to let them know that, oh no, it's quite the opposite. What I do know is you can do this. I stumbled into it, supposedly. This isn't something I tried to do or practiced to do, or I sat for my entire lifetime and said, oh, God, I'm doing this. Or worked with some huge guru someplace. I listened, I listened inside, and I made time, and I had a very balanced life. I was still working full time, doing hair and healing a few days a week and teaching, books, Course in Miracles, Keys of Enoch. I was teaching Ascension program from Mahatma's program. I was doing all kinds of things, classes, but playing. I played a lot. I was a very normal person. I meditated a lot. I spent a lot of hours in meditation because I just felt guided. I stumbled into angelology and was practicing that because it was interesting to me. I'm super fascinated with that. So I did it, and it just came. So whatever the journey is, I spent a lot of time with chakras. I did everything. I was everywhere, healing, everything. So I think what happens in that experience for anyone who awakens like that is you're in your romance years, you're in your passion years, and everything is exciting, and you're learning all this stuff, and and then it just all starts to balance. All of your body's balance because you're a balanced being. You're doing all of these things. And a lot of it was the programming, the rewiring of my thinking process. That was super important. It had a lot of power. I'm starting to get the hiccups now, so you take a drink.
Well, it seems like from what you said, your body actually rewired after the experience as well.
Yeah,
your physical body.
It did in through it. I think the only way we could access it is whatever they did to us was what allowed us to be able to have the experience. For the gates to open for us to actually know ourselves in those other states of being, because this one was not real anymore. When until we come back into it and talk to each other and say, oh my God, did you, this is happening and that's happening, unless we were sitting in this state, when we were observing from the others that we were participating in or acting in at those moments, this one was non-existent. It was existent, but it was not real. We were so far away from it that it was just, we knew it was a thought form. It was, it didn't, well, I've said this to you before, it didn't really have a life of its own. When I think our being in it breathes life into it. When we put our consciousness into it, it becomes alive. It's kind of like a video game, a little bit.
It became Technicolor.
Yes, until then it was black and white. Yeah, and somebody knew that long before, because isn't that what they did with The Wizard of Oz? You have the first part of the movie that's all black and white, and then as soon as she goes into Oz, it's all color, right? Yeah. Somebody knew that. I thought that was really interesting. They said if you dissect that movie, it's quite profound. So, someone was way ahead. That writer was way ahead of his time. Yeah. So consciousness is and I don't claim to know the first thing about it. I can just explain as best I can, what I think happened. But it has given me so much perspective on the twin flame, on the soul, because you and I, that's what most of these conversations are all about, right? Is the soul's journey. And this is no different, because it is still profoundly, a major aspect of the entire soul journey process. And I had never measured it that way before, thinking it would just be one of those classes, and it'd be interesting to people. And as always, we stumble into these really powerful places in this stuff, and it's much, much, much more than that. Yeah.
Well,
it's about our return.
Exactly. Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah. Were you going to say that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal it from you.
No, I appreciate that, the concept, because I was thinking about all the different threads that come together for any experience. To me, that's a miracle in itself. But the experiences are what lead us into these greater discussions.
Yeah.
And that brings a whole different level of facets that continue to grow into more of an integration.
Yeah. I had I would have to pull it up here, so it might take me just a minute, but there, in the organic conversation, I had written some things down for us. But before I get there, is there about the soulmates or the twin flame journey or anything, I mean, that profoundly that you want to talk about? Are there any thoughts that you've been having about any of that?
Well, the whole concept of twin flame is that's just a whole different level of intensity. But the soulmates, it seems like the soulmates are all and everybody and everything. It's just that I'm guessing that there's a different group for the different soulmates that are impacting each person, each soul. And does that group of soulmates come from the beginning, and then each one interacts in different places in different expressions? Or do we change groups throughout all of our expressions?
I think I know what you're asking. From what I sense, I mean, of what this falls so perfectly into this little tidbit little notes that I've made in here that I wanted to bring into our conversation that I think is so really, truly amazing. I had never really thought about it before, but I was talking with, my inner counsel, my inner guidance, and my buds on that in that area, which I think are parts of our soul as well, right? Depending on who we are. And I think ultimately, doesn't this all go back to like one overlay, one soul, one source anyway? I mean, we're all connected. So the question that you asked, depending on where you're looking from, if you're seeing it from here out, you could say that yes, within a vector of learning or consciousness or universes of consciousness or dimensional spaces of that specific learning, you may have, you would have portions, of your soul light that are, say, in preschool, or some in middle school, or some in high school. There may be some that have evolved a little bit before others. They don't all unfold at the same time, as I understand it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm right. It's just how I'm seeing it. And so you play for a time within your full existence. You may have a certain part of your energy, the whole of you, that's focused on that area, right? That journey, that universe, or that group of parts of your soul, fragments, particles, whatever, of the Creator's light, that's over there, that's playing at those levels, right? It's kind of like us coming into third dimensional light. It's a dense, very, very low vibration, but that doesn't mean all of us is playing there. There's a lot of the levels of ourselves, of us, that are playing on other dimensional spaces, other vibrational levels and frequencies of our entire light. And so it kind of goes like that. I mean, if I'm looking at it from a logical perspective, from consciousness, or how Source would be seeing it, or even your I am presence, let's say your I am, we can go just that far and say you have a personal I am, and then you've got, the I am, okay, the all in all, the all that is. And that's as far as I've seen anything go. I don't know. I don't never run into anything that knows what's beyond that. I don't know. So that kind of locks you into, or we can say that we're all sort of playing in that space. And I don't know if that's answering your question or helping you at all, because I think the answer is kind of yes all the way down the line, because we are experiencing a piece of us on all of those levels, right? All of them, all the time. So this is just a small space here, and there's a portion of us that's, or maybe not even us, but it has to be. You know, I keep doing this because it is a split when you're a human being having a journey. You know, there's a part of you that says, oh no, I'm separate from this, or that's got to be happening, you know, and I'm doing this over here and that's doing that. No, you're all doing that. It's like it's all you, or you're creating it. You know, you're either the creator of it, projecting it, and knowing it's happening, just like you could back that out, go backward, and use your dream description to kind of overlay over that. You could say, oh, you know, my dreams are just happening to me. No, they're not. Because they're still contained within the creative consciousness or creative mind that is you. This isn't just stuff that's happening. It's got a function. It has a purpose. It has a life when you're in it. But when you're not, you're here. And when you're not here, you're somewhere else, and you can project yourself to other dimensional spaces and times and have other experiences and journeys too. So, yes, you are always playing with you. That sounds terrible. I know, that's a really terrible way of saying it. But we are. And here's the really cool thing, and this is where I wanted to start introducing this, and this is probably the perfect time. If you have a minute. What is so really interesting is that we are such profound energies that we also create like storylines, right? Or missions, or profound journeys, or purposes, or it's like us writing books and plays. I mean, they always say that the material realm is only a reflection, right, of what is created on the higher levels, or what thought is projecting into physicality. So, are you with me so far?
Oh yes.
Because I'm going to make a weird transition here. As I was bringing in all of this and doing some background investigation on the twin flame thing, I ventured into I started thinking to myself, okay, I'd like to do something on twin flame or twin souls and reincarnation, okay? And so I had been already looking at Edgar Cayce's work. And here's something that was written about him. It says, according to Cayce, not only was Jesus and Adam the same soul in different incarnations, but the Virgin Mary and Eve were also the same soul in different incarnations. And the reason I came upon this is because I was looking for information on twin flames, right? And Cayce, in a lot of his readings and his past life work and his sleeping prophet work, had brought forth information on the fact that Jesus and Mary, his mother, now they're not saying Mary Magdalene, they're saying the Virgin Mary. There are people who differ with that, but they're saying they were twin flames. Okay, so they were having a twin flame journey and experience. Adam and Eve were. Now, prior to that, so I'm going to continue to read here for a second, Cayce also revealed that Adam and Eve, and therefore Jesus and Mary, were twin souls. When Cayce used this term in the readings, he was not referring to soulmates, which is a different concept. Basically, a soulmate is a soul or a group of souls who have shared so many lifetimes that they resonate to the same pitch or vibration, right? So they can find their connectedness. Soulmates understand each other like no one else can. This acquired understanding gives soulmates the ability to help each other in ways that would be difficult without the deep bonding that has occurred through the multitude of incarnations together. Twin souls, on the other hand, are two souls who share a common purpose or higher ideal. They do not necessarily have to be married or have a previous marriage incarnation. While the soulmate relationship is largely built in the physical realm, the twin soul relationship evolves from a commonality in the spirit realms. At the idea or ideal level, it is in this sense that the Adam-Eve and Jesus-Mary relationship is considered by Casey to be a twin soul relationship. He goes on in here, and this is so profound because every single one of their lifetimes, and he identifies how many different people Jesus' soul, the soul of him, or the soul that was Jesus eventually, came into incarnation prior to him being Jesus, all right, having that Christed life. So Edgar Casey's advanced teaching about yin-yang duality to include the composition of our souls and what happens when we incarnate, he explained that we project only half of our whole soul, either our feminine yin or our masculine yang. As a result, when we incarnate, we are not whole. We feel that a piece of us is missing. So we go searching for this piece out here among incarnating souls. As a male projection, we would look for a complementing female. As a female, we would look for a complementary male. Not surprisingly, the true complement is not out there. It is within us. We call this getting in touch with our feminine side or our masculine side. So this is where he's talking about how we have to do that completion within our own selves, right, before we come into a relationship like that. It was really interesting to me, trying to figure out if I should read the rest of this. Interestingly, we make better outer mates than we are in touch with our inner complement. The truth is that no outer incarnate person can fulfill our need for wholeness. Casey, which we know, Casey affirmed this, know the soul is rather a soul mate of the universal consciousness than of an individual entity. Casey took yin-yang a big step further, a step that is astonishing. According to Casey's channeling, when we project half of our yin-yang soul, the other half may incarnate as well. So sometimes when we throw ourselves into an incarnation, the other part may not stay behind us. It may just go, okay? And when that happens, according to Casey's channeling, when you project it, the other might go as well. Casey called this our twin soul, a twin soul, not a soul mate. He even gave examples of incarnate twins. He explained that he, Edgar Casey, and the yang half of his lifelong assistant Gladys Davis was the yin half. These two complemented each other in that Edgar channeled information and Gladys recorded it, typed it up, indexed it, and published it. When past life readings were given for these two, Edgar and Gladys, they revealed that they'd often incarnated together in varying roles and relationships. Now we may ask ourselves, if our twin is incarnate, is our complement still with us? Oddly, the answer is yes. Physical projection does not affect our spirit-mind dynamics. And see, that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier, about how, and I think that was that moment when I was talking about being in consciousness, my husband and I, Tony and I, that part of that personality, we were both one. And he projected himself. He threw himself into the reality, right? But he was still there because we're both one. I was relating to him. I was telepathically communicating, talking to him, and he was yelling, I can't leave her, I can't leave her. And I knew he was talking to me, but, I mean, it was such a different realm in reality that was happening in, but yet I knew he had not left. I knew he'd somehow threw himself in there. And I thought, what, how did you do that? Why did you do that? What are you doing? So it was very interesting. And I didn't read any of this until after I'd had those, reflections or those thoughts about it either. And that's the way it always goes with me, right? I have to have an experience, and then I find the information. So, are you hearing that?
Oh,
you are, okay.
What? I'm okay.
You didn't hear anything?
No.
Okay.
What did you hear?
Well, I think someone's at our door. It's our Ring doorbell.
Oh, I think you're...
The most astounding twin soul story is that Casey channeled was about Logos, the Word, the Messiah, as sacred as this soul is to us. It, too, experienced life as we have and do. According to the scriptures, in Casey, the Logos entered the contrived duality to help us overcome the captivating forces that bind us to this world's limited energy awareness. The following is Casey's channeled story of the yin-yang incarnation of the Logos. When we, our souls, first descended out of the realms of essential oneness into personal separate physical bodies, we lost touch with our original spiritual nature. We become focused on physicality and personality. We lost touch with oneness, resulting in feelings of separateness, even aloneness. And all of us know as healers, we've talked about that so many times, that seems to be the core. When you get to the core of somebody's healing, it's usually that first moment of separation from Source. So he talks about that, and not to go into all of this a lot, but there is a description if anybody ever wants to go and look at Casey's work and his channelings around Jesus. He does talk about all the incarnations that he had and who he was, and you may find it really, really interesting. The reason I'm bringing all this up is to just show that I have always been fascinated with the soul and incarnation, for one, which, again, draws in these soulmate things because you can switch and shift and move. Even in one single lifetime, you can jump from, one being to another being to another being. You're all having the same journey in the same lifetime, but you may experience as many different people within that lifetime. And I mean out of the host body that you're in. They can transfer, and they used to do it actually, I think, much more, not efficiently, but much more profoundly, way back when. And it describes, there's a book out called Secret Places of the Lions that is really fascinating. I think I have it downstairs, so I don't have the author at the moment. I wish I could remember his name. I think I want to say it's like Edwards, or I don't know, but it's the Secret Places of the Lions. And it talks, it's a very profound book for helping anybody understand I shouldn't even say reincarnation, incarnation, but it's a lot of the soul process, how the soul can work. And in our other soul, discussions that we've had, we've talked a lot about how you can do soul jumping and shifting and have soul exchanges and that kind of thing, even within the same life, and certainly with the same body. But I thought this is interesting to kind of back all that up and to also tie in that when you're moving in all of these life journeys with other aspects of your soul mates, that now, I mean, I've never heard him talk about twin flames in this respect, how you can actually, before you go into a journey or as you're going to projecting yourself into one, you can oftentimes just throw that other self just goes in there too at the same time. And you will encounter each other, of course, because you cannot not. You know, it doesn't mean you'll stay together, but you will encounter each other. I don't know. It's all the little pieces, right? All the little threads that tie everything in that make it such a more profound understanding of that term, and it really helps people to not maybe take a little bit more care not to kind of just banter it around or throw it around as much as they do, and really understand what that process is, that it's not all about, your ultimate love. It's not always a really pleasant or nice journey, believe me. It's very challenging, very hard. It can be very dark. And also in this description, I also met the dark night of the soul not long after I met my husband. Lost every bit of my own self-identity, lost myself completely, was totally beat to shreds. And that was when everything opened and awakened, when I had my first visitation. And and that's also in the journey, in the path to all the things that you experience when you meet your, come into relationship with your twin flame. So it's hard. It's challenging. And
well, it seems
not many
like
people want to do it.
well, it seems like there's so much woven into the experience and the experiences that are, I know one of the things that you had mentioned in the writings was the different experiences that you may have. And there's so many, and the messages that you get from, whatever you notice that is coming into your awareness. And it's just, it's all part of the journey, back to self, back to source.
Yeah, it is. It's a long one, and we have no idea how long, because we don't know how long we've existed. It's probably a good thing we don't remember all this stuff. But I do think this time that we're living in is, and the reason that we're having all these conversations that, I know I started out thinking we're going to be super simple and really, like I said again, repetitive, overdone, mundane, and very, very beginner type understandings of things. It's been just so wonderful to have the opportunity to see all of these things in such a different, powerful and profound way, and really bring them forth to people. Just to think about, to add to their understanding, their repertoire, maybe help. I know that I get helped so much in my life through other people's experiences. That if you can have them, you can relate to them, you've had similar things, maybe not the same thing at all, but similar things, or even a piece of it that, is familiar to you or strikes you or you've had happen to you. All of those things are super helpful, when you're feeling very alone, or you're feeling like you're the only, bizarre or odd person out there that's having any of this stuff happen to them. Because we are living in that time. It's just moving so, so, so fast. And, to be able to lift people up, to encourage them, to help them to know, because I'm a big believer, in playing it in the magical side of life. And I choose almost always to see that side. It's a place that I'd rather put my energies into to create, so that even if I'm living in some other reality, I can still have a place where I'm feeling comfortable, because there's lots of magical things going on, and that gets me through the day. That really helps me to be able to be in the places that I go to, other worlds that I encounter, and other and some people may call that escapism or something, but I'm still dealing with the third dimensional world. You know, you have to do all of those things. It's just that among those things, I'm having, you know, amazing encounters and magical experiences and miracles all the time. And I see them that way, you know. And again, I think that goes back to that thing about that you brought up earlier about the choice, the choosing of how you see your life and where you want to put your energies, you know, in this life, how you want to think about them. So
it's all it's all following the path, whatever your path is, and making those choices to be on the path that might be more helpful for what you call ascension, or to be in that vibration of fear and chaos and division and that kind of thing. And in my case, you know, that doesn't make sense. And I would like to be practical.
Yeah.
So the choice would be, what do you see? What do I see in any of my experiences? Where do I go? What do I look for? Why, you know, how is it supportive for myself or for anybody else to put more energy into those other things? Because you can still see them, but you don't need to put a lot of energy into it. You can try to shift it, transform that pattern.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, it's so true, and we do have that power all the time to get out ahead of it and transform it, to throw our love and wrap our heart and our wings around, you know, every situation that we see, rather than allowing it to become us. You know, it's that always, like you said, an invitation to have it come to us rather than become us. And that's the part of I think creating reality, creating the world, creating, you know, this stuff is going on. You know, given that little moment behind the veil and looking in, like we had in the angelology conversation, I do know that from my own experience, very personally, that there's only so much that you're allowed to do to interfere, but as a human person, because, and I think that's the really enticing part, or I could say the enticement of becoming human, is that it affords you, allows you to be able to sometimes do things, or you have permission. You have the ability to do things in human form that you might not be able to do on the other side once in a while. I mean, you have a lot of power. There is a lot of ways that you can assist from the other side, truly. I mean, a lot. But it's not always in the lives. No, that's not how I want to frame it. It isn't in the path of humanity. Humanity has to make its path. It has to choose its way. That was something that I witnessed with great, I want to say sorrow, but I'm going to say intrepidation, because it, you know, it's really not a personal thing when you're on the other side. You're just seeing that they're doing that, right? They're playing that game. And you know that's not the end of their existence or their life, and that all of that isn't really real that they think is happening to them, but they're putting that under their belt as their experiences and their journeys, and it needs to be measured as a real, true emotional experience. So that's what they're doing. And I noticed that, you know, the other realms were allowed to come in and do their functions, you know, to record and to be present and to make note of and mark things. And but they weren't able to thwart the direction that humanity had the will, their own right, their own power to choose. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does.
Yeah. In an individual light, if they were in trouble, if they needed help, if there was, the comfort and the aid and the ways that we were able to interact with them there, that was allowed. But in general, as a planet, as a people, as a species, they were sovereign. So if all of that is true, and like I said, it was a million times more real than this will ever be, I have to believe it was true, that at least the gist of it that I was getting was accurate. And that's what I saw, even to the point of, their detriment. So, that was given so long ago as a potential if humanity didn't, make different choices or didn't take a different turn. And I don't like to talk about those things or even choose to, because I don't like to give energy to them. So I just truly believe that I sense and I feel a breath of different air, and I do think things are, and especially yesterday was 10/10, October the 10th, and that's endings and new beginnings. I think it was a very profound day, and after the hurricane and everything, even the hurricane was pretty descriptive of the two back to back, of like a cleansing, like a wake-up call, a shake-up thing, making note of, like a punctuation mark on something. And it just was clear the next day, and beautiful, and it wasn't as horrible as everybody had anticipated, which was such a blessing and such a wonderful thing. And I know so many light hearts and light minds and beautiful people were with all of them for that whole entire time. They're holding them in a beautiful space, and I don't know, I just felt like they were so connected. It was very powerful feeling that we were definitely into a different space, a different light, a new journey, a new time. And I have really good feelings about it. I know that others may have a different take or a different sense on it. I don't really know what good that does them, but I mean, like we always say, it's always easier and probably better for all of us to hold optimism about it rather than pessimism about anything. So, and I've always got Jesus like whispering in my ear saying, be not anxious about much, And are you done yet? Are you done yet with your freak out, with your worry, with your anxiety? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, thanks for reminding me all the time. So it just kind of sets you right.
I didn't even think about the 10/10. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all really powerful moments in time, but numerologically, it's really funny how powerful mathematics is in all of life, really. Much more so than the things we think we see or the stuff that plays out. It's interesting because they're all the things codes that run behind everything.
Right.
Yeah.
The patterns.
So they can have an interesting. And again, it's probably just more games we play with our mind, that it makes a note, or it's like a bookmark or something that kind of tells us, if you read those kind of things, if you notice them, that something's happening.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah, dear.
I'm aware that the solar storms are stronger than they usually are, and the planetary barriers are lighter than what they used to be. So that means, in my mind, that there's more packets of information coming from the central sun in light codes, and therefore those codes are more multidimensional than they used to be.
Oh, that's really fascinating. Well, you get a lot of that information because you've talked often about the light packets and the codes that come from the sun. I agree with you. I've been reading that too. I get, we probably both get that. I get that science reports or whatever it is about all the stuff that's going on, space weather or something like that. And I noticed yesterday I was reading about the electromagnetic impulse coming off the sun and when it was going to hit. I guess it was a couple days ago, a CME, CEME or something. That's super powerful that was supposed to hit the Earth yesterday or day before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I felt it too. I agree with you. I do know that all that is playing a really powerful role in, I think that, there's so many people out there who study, photons and all of that. They're really into all of that energy. And I think photons are actually the packets, of coded light and information that come in here. It may not be all of it. It may be not the only distribution of it, but it is one way. I don't fully understand it all intellectually myself, but I feel it because I'm more a feeling body. I'm more emotional and feeling body. But yes, I have read that too. What are your thoughts on it? What do you think?
I just think that that's part of our lifting up. That I guess my story is that the higher beings did not realize we would be reaching a tipping point that we have, and that it goes back to what you said earlier, that we are in a better place. We are continuing to grow into the spiritual source beings that we are, and recognizing that. And as we are doing that, we're in a new playground that was not expected. And as we are in that playground, it's more of, I was thinking about this because I know in an earlier conversation I mentioned about the individual growth. And I think that before it was more of a collective growth, but now it's more of the individual supporting the other individuals for the collective. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I was trying to figure that out. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I have to go back and recognize and pick apart what I said, because on one level it doesn't make sense, but on the other level, as I pick it apart, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we are all individuals supporting each other in our continuing emergence and growth.
Yeah.
But it's that light coming into our hearts and our souls that are expanding that light to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, do you think it's because we have no limits on ourselves, that we don't have to just pick and choose that we are individual or we are one? I mean, if we're in a place in a time where we can be all things, we don't have to be small, we don't have to define ourselves, we don't have to limit ourselves, and we really aren't. We're just realizing that, we can shape shift and we can move and we can draw in and draw on all that we are all the time, that there's really no reason that we can't be living in or seeing our experiences or our movement or our beingness from all of those levels at the same time. And at each one of them we experience ourselves a little differently, right, as we are to the whole.
Yes.
So I think that could be, rather than you You know, because I remember a time when I was doing the same thing. You know, because you're weaving all of it, right? We haven't quite gotten there yet, where you're just functioning as knowing that you're all of it all the time. You're still, because we're still dealing with physicality. We have to kind of engage parts of ourselves, and some of those parts of self are very physical. So when you're dealing with the physical, you're doing stuff. When you're dealing with the higher, realms, you may have some doing, but you're doing less, and you're knowing more, right? And you're able to send energies and do things and perform. I shouldn't say do things, perform things in a different way, because you everything is energy and consciousness, so you work differently. Your power is expressed in a different way. But the physical being, like you're noticing, like you're observing and saying, is definitely evolving. It's becoming, because it's somehow it's stayed intact to this point and has endured and also unfolded in this new light, as these DNA encodings and envelopes open, right? It is becoming something that it's never been before, it's never seen before, which is holding a physical self with its fullness and understanding of, or should maybe not understanding yet, but fullness and access to all that it is. So, yes, I think you're describing it quite well, and I would say that probably almost everybody is struggling a little bit with that at times, saying I'm supposed to be one, I'm supposed to not be individual, I'm supposed to not worry about that. But I think also people are still working, finishing up, completing the physical inner stuff, healing, in the midst of all of this stuff that's unfolding. So there is still a part of ourselves that's having to identify, look at ourselves, scrutinize, let go of it, or deal with it, or whatever, where we're still being shown little stuff about ourselves. It's like residual cleanup and things that's still going on, which every now and then call us to say, yeah, we are sovereign, we're an individual person, because we really needed to work on the sovereignty. We really needed to get to a place where we understood that we're now becoming the creators, of reality. We're not having relationship anymore. That's not important. That learning is done, and we're moving from that. It doesn't mean you're not going to love them all, because you are. You're going to love them and see them in a correct and balanced way. But we're getting to the place where we're moving past that now. And what's important, like you said, is the help meeting of all other beings and life, and all the things we're talking about, environment and animals and elemental kingdoms and the earth and the air and the water and the each other, and our light creations and visions and dreams, and where we're going. It's so, we've said this, I've laughed about it before, because this is coming out of, one party's mouth, sort of, it's looking toward the future. And lots of words about love and light and joy and, all this other stuff. So it's hitting. It's getting in here. And a lot, when we first started talking, I just wanted to kind of come full circle around to something you said, that you were your body was falling apart, your old body. And I started laughing, because I know that a lot of that is because we are so busy trying to energetically deal with everything at all these other levels, that is kind of streamlining, coming in, weaving itself, threading itself like through this little tiny pinhole of a needle to come into us, and we into it. That it's taking a lot. You said you were sore. I've been experiencing the same thing. Everybody I'm talking to, and I work out. I mean, you work out, so it's not like we shouldn't be stiff and sore when we. I know that's typically old, but that's a belief too. Let's just throw that out. It doesn't have to be. And I do think it's energetic. I think because our bodies are turning, they're going to crystalline, they're going to light. We're losing the density, the atomic structure to a certain degree. I mean, it's going to happen at a very slow rate, I think. I'm not sure, but that's what I would think. Logic or reason, because we can't just lose it or what happens. But I have heard all the guidance has been exercise, exercise, exercise. For years, I've been hearing this from there, wherever there is. And I do think that it's super important because we've got to keep up some stability, I guess, within the physical form as this is all transmuting. And it will. We're going to lose mass, and we're going to become more light, and even the processes that you're interested in, going to the salt, what's it called, the salt
room.
Spa? Salt room.
Salt room.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things that people are being drawn to now, I think are aiding, really, these transitions. They're really definitely being guided. Yeah. Different diets, you may be changing all kinds of things that you thought were good for you or bad for you before, and you just know that, you're hearing something different. Just go with it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's like, okay, I like change.
yeah. And if it, like they say, if it feels good, do it. And I think that's true, because we just have no idea, what it is that we really need. And in that respect, yes, I think we are individual and we're unique because we aren't all going to do it the same way. And we won't all require the same processes or path, to that, especially to that physical evolution. It will measure it differently. It'll require different things.
Right, and that's, like you said, it's such an individual process for everyone, for whatever is coming into their consciousness to do. It's like, okay, pay attention. Make the choice that seems right for you, not what the popular information seems to be.
Yeah, exactly. And we've always been guided there, right, to be overriding everything with our guidance, what you know inside you, is probably the clearest and most perfect thing that you can listen to, because nothing outside of you knows. Yeah. So this has been fun.
It is. It's a fun journey. I appreciate taking the journey with you.
I appreciate it more. Oh, you have no idea. So I realized that we didn't do the actual class. I was hoping that we would get to this organic conversation. It might have. I might have wanted to even take it, to a deeper level, but I'm really pleased with this because I think it's deep enough, and I'm just always astounded. And that's kind of why I marked this class as the confounding truth of twin flames and soulmates, because it is truly has been super interesting to me. It's taken a turn I didn't expect. Yeah, always does, right?
Right. I know how much, I don't know exactly, but I suspect how much you work on the foundational pieces, the traditional pieces, and then you get so much information coming through And as I was reading it the first time, it's like, oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either. So it was all new to me too, but not, do you ever get like that where you're reading stuff and you're reading it, but you know it. It's sort of like
right.
You may not have known it or read it someplace, but you know it. It's like,
yes.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's always fun. And when you're researching or pulling, when I'm pulling information here on the Earth plane, I do that for a reason because, of course, I have to be able to talk in a way that they'll understand, right? That's why I kind of go to I have to go to that place first, and then I pull it all in and weave in little parts, channeling and stuff that or tweak it a little bit or whatever, and that seems to be sufficient for. Like you said, it triggers and kind of jump starts the other. And then where we go with that is always so fun too. But it's a language that I'm learning to speak. You can understand things from just understanding them all, which I think a lot of us do. We just know it. We just know stuff. But how do you say it? How do you bring it down? How do you describe it? How do you relate it to people? And that's been my what I've been working on really, really hard because it's my greatest struggle.
But I think it's your greatest gift.
Well, thank you. Oh, that's very sweet.
Well, everything just comes together. Yeah, but it is. I think that's why you're doing what you're doing right now, because this information, any information that comes through, is the right thing at the right time for whoever's ready to receive it.
Yeah. So it's been fun. Thank you so much,
it's a fun
Betty,
topic.
for having